And just like that, the 2025 season is over. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today, and welcome to November. Weird to say it's November already. Hot stove season. Well, I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we are diving into the outfield with part one of this position recap. It's a lot of names to talk about, so we'll do a part two tomorrow as well. We'll look at preseason ADP, what went right and wrong, who finished in the top 24. But first, the World Series has ended. The Dodgers have gone back-to-back. Congrats to them and their fans. I understand many people were rooting against the Dodgers here. Objectively speaking, that was an incredible series of baseball. I mean, high drama, lots of fun. Even Game 7 went into extra innings, and it's just like...
And that was the several crazy moments.
Yeah,
like
that was the best Game 7 ever. It was the best Game 7 ever.
Trucking Kike Hernandez in the outfield. Just
the ninth inning alone of that game. You had obviously the game-tying home run by Miguel Rojas of all people. And then in the bottom half,
I don't like Miguel Rojas. He was mean to Jazz Chisholm.
You get on back-to-back plays. First, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what if the World Series is decided on an overturned call at home plate?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't crystal
I was
clear.
really rooting against that.
Down in time.
Would have hated that.
I think no matter what, even if they had obvious evidence, they couldn't overturn. They just couldn't do that.
Split-second decision. It goes against the Blue Jays for the win of the World Series. And then on the very next play, that ball off Ernie Clement's bat, where, you mentioned it, Andy Pages colliding with, it was Enrique Hernandez, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kike Hernandez out there in left field. As they're first, I mean, just off the bat, it looked like, okay, that's it. That's
the game.
And then as they're converging, it's like, okay, they're going to collide and the ball's going to fall and the World Series is going to end that way. For a Blue Jays fan, that must have been...
I can't even imagine.
It's heartbreaking.
Such heartbreak to be that close 3 times in the 9th inning.
And that is what they've done all postseason long, all season long too, is just... They never give up, and they always fight back, too. I understand that there are no moral victories, especially here in the World Series, right? But, man, that is a magical season for the Blue Jays. I feel bad, but it's still, no matter how you want to look at it, incredible season for the Toronto Blue Jays. Yoshinobu Yamamoto won the MVP, well-deserved. He had 3 wins in the World Series alone, 2 games which he started, and then pitching in relief in Game 7 as well. He threw a complete game, actually back-to-back complete games from the NLCS into the World Series as well. So
how about this?
Yep.
The game he pitched to get the win in Game 7, where he pitched, I think, 2 2/3 innings on 0 days rest, right? He pitched back-to-back days.
Yeah.
That is the first time in Yoshinobu Yamamoto's MLB career, at least, that he pitched on less than 5 days rest. And given the way they use pitchers in Japan and the reason he's been used in a 6-man rotation, it's entirely possible. That is the first time Yoshinobu Yamamoto has pitched on less than 5 days rest ever, or at least since high school, peewee, travel ball. I don't know. That was crazy.
Yeah.
For 2 and almost 3 full innings to get the win, that was. I saw some greatest postseason run ever by a pitcher, and we got to calm down, guys. Madison Bumgarner was not that long ago. He had a 1.03 ERA in 52 innings. Let's not forget.
It did feel Bumgarner-esque, but not as.
It was not quite Bumgarner or Randy Johnson, mostly because those guys threw way more innings because it was a different era.
Right. Yeah. So here we are, end of the season. Dodgers go back-to-back as, many people were worried about the past couple of years after them collecting all of these players together. And now, I mean...
But doesn't the whole thing feel a little rickety?
Doesn't
it feel like if Ohtani is just really good next year, doesn't it feel like this is not that special of a team?
There's speculation that they're going to be in on Kyle Tucker, so that would change the calculation.
Well, you know what, man? The Yankees should have no reason not to beat them for that offer. Let's see if they do.
Let's see if they do. And let's talk about Kyle Tucker and the rest of the state of outfield. So much high-end talent at this position. Is it as deep as we thought in season? Because we lost a bunch of names here. There's some players that are util only: Alvarez, Kyle Schwarber, Christian Yelich. Some names that also just lost outfield: Mookie Betts, Jazz Chisholm. So, Scott, what do you think? Is outfield? I know in season we kept saying, if it goes 50, 60 players deep, we feel really good about. Is it still that here in the offseason?
It is not as deep, maybe, as I indicated at one or 2 points toward the end of the season, where it was like, how could you possibly rank Jacob Marcy in the top 36 given all the other options? How could you possibly rank How could you possibly rank Jurickson Profar that high given all the other options? And I think I managed to get them both that high because, as you mentioned, you take Schwarber, you take Jordan Alvarez out, you take Christian Yelich out, you take Jazz Chisholm out. And, okay, those are 4 very high-end bats that are no longer eligible. And so now it's like, well, are there even 12 outfielders that I'd call legit number 1 outfielders for fantasy? No, there aren't.
Yeah.
Having said that,
especially in points, I think.
Having said that, compared to all the other positions, all the other hitter positions, I think shortstop's the only one that compares in terms of quality and quantity too, at least from a shallow league perspective. So outfield is strong, just maybe not as crazy strong as I was indicating in September.
It's a little mushy in the middle, I think. Like once you hit, I feel like there's a teardrop around 10, maybe. It's not quite as strong as you'd like in the 20s and 30s, but there's good depth for sure.
And some of those names could regain outfield eligibility, right? Alvarez, on CBS, you only need 5 games in season to gain it. So Alvarez could play a little bit in the outfield. Yelich still could play a little bit in the outfield. Kyle Schwarber, we'll see, where he winds up and what position he's expected to play. So things could change a little bit here at the outfield position. Let's take a look back at the preseason top 12 in ADP. According to Fantasy Pros, that includes Yahoo, CBS, NFBC, Fantrax, and RT Sports Drafts. We had Aaron Judge as the top outfielder drafted, followed by Juan Soto, Kyle Tucker, Mookie Betts, Corbin Carroll, Fernando Tatis Jr., Julio Rodriguez, Yordan Alvarez, Jackson Chourio, Jarren Duran, Jazz Chisholm, Jackson Merrill. Again, Betts, Alvarez, Jazz no longer have outfield eligibility. According to the Fangraphs Player Rater, only 5 of those names I just mentioned finish inside the top 12. It's also a completely different position than the others we talked about, just because there's so many other options and possibilities to move up the rankings as well. So looking at the biggest breakouts at the position, Pete Crow Armstrong, James Wood, first half of the season for both of those guys. On the whole, they still had great seasons all around. This position really highlighted by breakouts, right? Like George Springer, Byron Buxton staying
Christian
healthy.
Yelich.
Both of those guys just having massive seasons, and we'll talk about those two a little bit later on. Biggest bust, lots of options here as well. Alvarez, the injuries, everything that occurred, he played less than 50 games. Jackson Merrill, just kind of a mess of a season. He missed a month early on with a hamstring strain, then missed a month later in the season with a concussion as well. O'Neal Cruz, we spoke about this on the shortstop recap. He is only outfield eligible now, but got off to a great start. Wound up hitting just 200 over 544 plate appearances. Chris, would you agree those are the top 3 candidates? Is there anyone else that comes to mind as biggest bust in the outfield this season?
Yeah, the 2 I wrote about were Yordan Alvarez and O'Neal Cruz. I think Jackson Merrill obviously makes a lot of sense as well. I think in Merrill's case especially, I think the injury explains the poor season because before he had the concussion, I want to say he had like a low 800s, mid 800s OPS and was basically having the season we expected, if I'm remembering correctly. It was like a 300 average. Alvarez got off to a really bad start, missed all that time with that hand injury that ended up being misdiagnosed, comes back and just plays like himself for a month, and then I think he has the ankle sprain that basically ended his season. My expectations for Yordan Alvarez, I know he's DH eligible, but we'll talk about him on today's pod. my expectations for him as a hitter remain basically unchanged. And I don't know, I could be setting myself up for another Byron Buxton esque series of failures and disappointments, but I don't really have that much concern about Alvarez from an injury standpoint. Like, obviously he has a higher baseline injury threat than most players, I think, but like this year just was two complete freak injuries. And one, I don't know, maybe the Astros are just bad at diagnosing fractured bones and that will just continue to be a thing. That feels like something to not be too concerned about. And it wasn't the knees this year. He hasn't really missed a ton of time over the past 2 seasons with the knee injuries as well. So I think Yordan Alvarez is going to fall to like the 3rd or 4th round. I'm going to draft a lot of Yordan Alvarez because I don't think there are more than 5 better power batting average combos than Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah, and in that first mock draft that we did last week, I took Yordan Alvarez at pick 29. So the middle of the 3rd round in a 12-team roto league, and I felt fine about taking him there. It kind of feels like enough of a discount, but we'll see where everyone else kind of settles in here on Alvarez this offseason. Let's hit our first break. Before we do, just a reminder, Chris and I are doing a live podcast at First Pitch Arizona later this week, discussing the biggest questions for 2026. We've created a Google survey. You can find the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Be sure to fill that out so we can get as much data as possible. Also, if you are going to be at First Pitch Arizona, make sure to pack a Hawaiian shirt. We will be doing a live Kokomo Friday edition of Fantasy Baseball today. So should be a lot of fun. I actually, right before we started, I ordered a bunch of like Hawaiian leis to hand out to people who are there. So should be a great time. Yeah. Let's take a break and we'll be back right after this.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today we'll quickly hit on some news and notes. As mentioned, we're into November now. The season is over, so we're going to start to get some updates and things about, player opt-outs and free agents and all those fun types of things. But a bunch of players have officially opted out or declined their mutual option and are now free agents. That includes Robert Suarez, Edwin Diaz, Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso, Cody Bellinger, Brendan Woodruff, Michael King, Lucas Giolito, and Ha-Sung Kim. That last one, Scott, we were kind of on the fence with your Atlanta Braves whether or not he would decline that option. He did. Shortstop market's pretty weak. We'll see who throws some money at Ha-Sung Kim this offseason. The Brewers exercised Freddie Peralta's $8 million club option for next year. Makes sense. Also could potentially move him this offseason. We've already heard some kind of whispers about the Brewers doing that. Gleyber Torres underwent sports hernia surgery on Friday. He played through it for the final couple months, which might explain his bad second half. Gleyber should be a full go for spring training and is also a free agent here. So see if he winds up back with the Detroit Tigers or not. Chris Bubich has been cleared to begin a throwing program. He missed nearly all of the second half with a left rotator cuff strain. Bryce Miller will have a follow-up appointment with Dr. Keith Meister to determine the next steps for treatment of a small bone spur in his right elbow. I know once he came back, he pitched better. He looked pretty good in the postseason. Velocity was up. He also said that it was the healthiest he felt all season. So as we learn more about Bryce Miller, we'll let you know. After Game 7 of the World Series, Max Scherzer said he plans to pitch again next year. No surprise, that guy's a maniac. So, and he looked good in the postseason as well. The Braves, Scott, your Braves hired Walt Weiss as their next manager. He has been their bench coach since 2018. He has some managerial experience as well with the Rockies from 2013 to 2016. How do you feel, Scott? Are you fired up for Walt Weiss?
It's hard to get fired up for Walt Weiss. It was
Marlins legend Walt Weiss.
pretty Look, I mean, he probably had the greatest defensive play in Braves postseason history. So he made the All-Star team for the Braves. Like he's got some history with the organization beyond just bench coach. But as the Braves had this very disappointing season, and everybody was kind of figuring it would be Brian Snitker's last season one way or the other. So the whole season it was speculation. Okay, who's going to take over as manager? And there were some interesting names floated. Danny Lehman, the Dodgers bench coach, became one of the most cited possibilities, which would be interesting because I can't recall a time there was a manager with long hair before, which Danny Lehman has. So that would have been interesting. But ultimately, they decided to, after all that speculation and on the heels of that disappointing season, they decided to keep it in-house with the understudy of Brian Snitker, who himself is 61 years old and who has managerial experience without much success, albeit with the Rockies. Not a lot of managers have had success with the Rockies, so maybe it's not fair to assess Walt Weiss on that. Because the season was so disappointing, that is why this feels like a disappointing outcome. But the reason the season was so disappointing is because everybody's used to seeing the Braves have so much success. So if any organization's going to keep it in-house and aim for continuity, it makes sense that this would be one. Keep the whole coaching staff together, try to run it back after spending a little money this offseason in all likelihood. So that's my full take on Walt Weiss. Hard to get excited, but the more you think about it, you understand why they went the direction they did.
The Gold Glove winners were announced in the American League. We had Dylan Dingler, Ty France, interesting, Marcus Semien, Bobby Witt Jr., Michael Garcia, Stephen Kwan, Cedon Rafaela, Willier Abreu, Mauricio Dubon, and Max Fried. In the National League, Patrick Bailey, Matt Olson, Nico Horner, Mason Wynn, Ke'Bryan Hayes, Ian Happ, Pete Crow Armstrong, Fernando Tatis Jr., Javier Sanoja, there you go, Chris, you got a Marlin in there, and Logan Webb. So there you go. Also, the finalists for all the other awards were announced: MVP, Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, all that fun stuff. But we don't find that out until January, right? Something like that.
Nah, it can't be that late, can it?
No, it's going to be in November.
Yeah, I will say it always seems like the weird choices, like the truly inexplicable ones, come at first base, which I just kind of think highlights how, like, even though it's the most straightforward position defensively, it's probably the hardest to actually judge. And so you end up with these situations where, like, guys who are, like Ty France, much less than full-time players, end up winning Gold Glove.
Yeah.
Like, there was probably a more valuable defensive first baseman in the American League than Ty France, right? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't have a strong opinion about it one way or the other. It just strikes me as odd.
You know what I was thinking of? I think the Hall of Fame is announced in January, right? And so the awards are announced here coming up in November. So Rookie of the Year on November 10th, Manager of the Year at the 11th, Cy Young on the 12th, and then MVP awards announced on November 13th. Let's get into the top 24 outfielders from this past season. This is according to the Fangraphs Player Rater. This is for Roto/category leagues. I'll throw these at you in trios. We're not going to talk about every single name because a lot of them are, high-end players. There's not really, I guess, much to add.
And like the players in, say, the top three, I mean, we all expected all three of these guys to finish at the top of the outfield ranking. So we don't really need to spend any time talking about it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Oh, wait.
Let's start there with the top three. Aaron Judge, Juan Soto.
Yeah.
And George Springer,
exactly,
just like everyone predicted. One of these names is not like the other. Aaron Judge has hit over 310 with 50-plus homers in 3 of his last 4 years. He is in contention for the first overall pick next year. Juan Soto, generational talent, slow start, but he went ballistic in the second half, posted a career-high 38 steals. I guess we could talk a little bit about that in a bit. But George Springer, man, just stands out like a sore thumb here, along with Geraldo Perdomo. One of the biggest league winners in fantasy baseball this season in his age 35 season. 309 batting average, 32 homers, 106 runs, 18 steals, a 959 OPS that continued into the playoffs where he hit 284 with 4 more homers and an 899 OPS. Chris, what do you make of this renaissance for George Springer? How did he do it?
I don't know. I mean, like, we can look at the specific things that he did. He started elevating the ball a ton more. He started hitting the ball harder. But, like, how did he do that becomes the answer. And I'm sure there is some, explanation that's been offered. this is probably just a dead cat bounce, and we probably shouldn't expect him to be nearly this good next season. And I really have no idea what to do with George Springer. Honestly, it's one of the more shocking turnarounds I've ever seen. This is a 36-year-old who had been in steep decline. His OPS had dropped 4 straight years to 674 in 2024. And it's not like there was really anything under the hood in 2024 to get excited about. He had good plate discipline. He underperformed his expected stats a little bit, but he also had well below average quality of contact, which suddenly turned into really, really good quality of contact this season. Like that's the thing, is that this is not a situation where George Springer just played over his head. His expected stats were actually better than what he managed. My guess is that there's going to be more than enough skepticism around George Springer that it doesn't really matter. If you buy into it a little bit, you'll probably be higher than the consensus on him. And I think I do buy into him.
Where do you rank him initially at outfield? Because there are 2 outfielders who both were great in 2025. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised how high I ended up ranking them. In large part because, as we mentioned at the top, very high-end bats with outfield eligibility are removed from the outfield. And it's like, well, if I'm going to invest in a high-end outfielder, like I feel like I have a better chance with George Springer, who just in the second half, George Springer averaged more head-to-head points per game in the second half when he hit 369, by the way.
He just kept getting better, yeah.
Than Aaron Judge had for the season. More points per game for George Springer in the second half than Aaron Judge had for the season. And so, like, okay, I guess he's not in decline. He could start declining anew because he's in his late 30s, but it's hard to say, well, he's in decline when he just puts together the second best season of his entire career. Where do you put him?
I finished with him 21st.
In the outfield?
Yeah.
Okay, I have him 13th.
Yeah, I feel. I mean, 13th. I feel like it's probably too low as I say that, but I honestly have no idea. I think him and Buxton is sort of a separate issue because a lot of his was just he stayed healthy for the first time in a long time. But in both cases, you're paying for. Honestly, this might have been the best season of George Springer's career as a hitter.
By OPS, it was the second best.
Yeah, but it was the second best.
Either way, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's not going to the Hall of Fame, but he's just outside of going to the Hall of Fame, who had this good of a season this late in his career after appearing to be on decline. I
stole 18 bases. Just had a huge season. Yeah.
Like I said, I want to be skeptical of George Springer, but when I'm looking at the outfilders who I could rank ahead of him, okay, Randy Arozarena, he's fine, but he's flawed. He's not going to deliver an early round outcome. Riley Greene, same thing. Cody Bellinger, let's see if he ends up back with the Yankees. If he does, maybe I'll move him ahead of Springer, but
I assume you have Jackson Merrill behind him. I know
I have Jackson Merrill quite a bit behind him.
Yeah, I know you're out on. You hate Jackson Merrill.
Well, he had a pretty bad season. Even with a monstrous September to try and redeem it, he's still ended up.
Yeah, there are plenty of very soft rankings ahead of him that it would be very easy to move George Springer up. That's one where I think what I want to do with George Springer is end up a little bit ahead of consensus, but not a ton.
Yeah.
So just give yourself a chance to.
Yeah, it'll be a soft ranking until I see where everybody else has him, and then I'll figure it out. Just because the underlying data backs it up, I do mostly want to believe in it, but it's really hard at his age given how bad he was in 2024.
I do also want to give a shout out to Blue Jays hitting coach David Popkins, who was hired last October and really helped elevate this entire team's approach and coincides with George Springer having this huge bounce back kind of breakout season. So, and he helped a lot of other Blue Jays, like Dalton Varsho was a legit power hitter hitting the ball harder than ever before. So
I think you can make the case that Dalton Varsho and George Springer were like the two most surprising hitter breakouts of 2025. Yeah. And they were both on the same team.
And I think that hitting coach had a lot to do with it too. 4, 5, and 6 in the outfield from this past season. Julio Rodriguez, Corbin Carroll, and Fernando Tatis Jr. All three were expected to deliver. They all had an ADP inside of the top 16 picks overall. We could just do a quick thought on each, pass it around, 30 seconds to a minute. I mean, I don't think we need to spend too much on these, but Scott, I'll let you take Julio Rodriguez. Chris, you could take Corbin Carroll, and I'll take Tatis Jr. So, Scott, we'll start with you. Quick thought on Julio. You wearing your Mariners shirt? How about that?
I am wearing my Mariners shirt, and I try to choose my shirt based on what we're talking about, and I knew we'd get around to Julio Rodriguez. So anyway, I think by now we know not to apply Rodriguez's typically big second half, which he had again, over a full season. Say, okay, look what he did in the second half. He's just going to do that all year.
Yeah.
But taking his full numbers is what they are. It's a 30-30 man who won't hurt you too much in batting average. So I think that's still pretty easy first round pick. Certainly in Roto, he probably slides to round 2 in points because of the poor plate discipline. But I just don't think there's a lot of reason to wring our hands over Julio Rodriguez anymore. He may not be as good as we once dreamed he could be when we were taking him like second overall a few years ago, but he's still really good.
Yeah, just make sure to buy low on him on July 1st. That'll probably work out pretty well next year. Chris, over to you for Corbin Carroll.
Yeah, I mean, it's also worth noting with Julio and Corbin Carroll, they're such established superstars that it's easy to forget. Julio's 24 and Corbin Carroll's 25. Yeah, there's still probably a career best season in here for both of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's still possible Julio Rodriguez improves, but it's actually been so consistent. The year-to-year production has been so consistent.
If he goes out this year and hits 295 with 40 homers and 30 steals, I really wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, sure. And that's Julio you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd be a little more surprised if Corbin Carroll got to 40 homers. He's a little guy, relatively speaking, but he basically only has like a mediocre batting average as the knock against him at this point. It was 259 this year, 231 the year before. I think the 285 as a rookie is probably the high water mark unless he changes some things, but he's so tuned for power that I think batting average is going to be a relative liability for his game, but it's only relative. Like I don't think the 231 is something you should expect. It's probably something like 265 to 275.
231 was what he hit in 2024.
Yeah. I think he's a good bet for 30-30. I think there's more home run ceiling than 31 homers this year. I think there's more stolen base ceiling than the 32. He plays in a lineup that's generated a ton of plate appearances over the past few years for him. I think Corbin Carroll's awesome. I think he's just like a half step less awesome than some of the other super high-end guys, but he's a clear first rounder.
Here's what I want to say about Corbin Carroll, because I don't know that this got a lot of discussion as it was happening. Like it's easy to say he sells out so much for home runs that he can't produce a high batting average, and that's fine because we want the home runs. But he was one of the biggest gainers in exit velocity this past year. His average exit velocity in 2024, 89.3. 2025, it was 92.1, about 3 miles per hour. And the max exit velocity was up like 4 miles per hour. Like he was clobbering the ball unlike we've ever seen Corbin Carroll do it. So that gives me a little more hope that he could find his way into more batting average, since he doesn't need to sell out as hard for the power anymore. Yeah. 274 was his expected batting average, which is actually really good, 73rd percentile. Actually hit 259. I think, I think Corbin Carroll might be a better bet for batting average than Julio Rodriguez.
I think my expectation is probably pretty similar for both. I mean, the XBA for Carroll was 274, and I feel like Julio's been right around there his entire career. So
yeah, it was 284 this year.
I just think, given that Carroll has a lower strikeout rate, it was up a little this year, but still not as high as Julio.
It was actually higher than Julio's this year.
Oh, was it? Okay.
About 2 points.
It's generally been lower and much lower than Rodriguez. So if Carroll continues to hit the ball this hard, I don't know. I see a little more room for improvement with batting average for him.
And I'll just mention with Fernando Tatis Jr. again, he finished as the 6th best outfielder this year. It feels like a down season. Technically it was. He finished 29th overall in roto and category leagues. But even if he has to dial it back a little bit in order to stay healthy, it still was a fine season. 268, 25 homers, 111 runs scored, 32 steals with an 814 OPS, the best plate discipline of his career. He walked more. He struck out less. It led to less power, but it did help us in head-to-head points leagues. And again, it's, 25-30 player. I still feel like maybe he can get a little bit better.
I don't think he can.
I think the highest end upside outcome for all three of these guys is Fernando Tatis. And I actually don't think it's particularly close.
I am done thinking Fernando Tatis is going to hit 30 home runs and playing at least as long as he's playing in San Diego. And you know what the tipping point for me was? Seeing his pull air rate, which we didn't have access to before. Yeah. It's pretty much always been in the blue. The one year it wasn't was the one amazing year, 2021, pre-PED suspension for whatever that's worth. But we've kept hoping Tatis would get back to that level. I believe he's not as good at San Diego, which isn't a surprise. And then he has a horrible pull air rate. So it explains why we keep seeing Fernando Tatis underperform his expected stats. And I think we just got to take that as it.
Oh, I agree. We should just take him at face value.
Yeah.
I just think if he makes the tweaks he needs to, I just think the upside's higher for him than I just think he's a more physically gifted player than Julio Rodriguez or Corbin Carroll, which is not a knock on those guys. And I'm not saying you should draft Fernando Tatis as if that's likely to happen. Yeah. I think that 90th percentile outcome for Fernando Tatis is higher than Julio Rodriguez or Corbin Carroll's 90th percentile.
I mean, if he makes a priority to improve the pull air rate, then sure. But he's seemed pretty satisfied with where it's at the last few years.
Yeah. 7, 8, and 9 in the outfield this past season. We had Hunter Goodman, who no longer has outfield eligibility as well. Catcher only. Pete Crow Armstrong was number 8. And then Byron Buxton was number 9. PCA, we spoke extensively on the pod where we recapped our preseason sleepers, breakouts, and busts. It was an awful final 2 months for PCA. He's really aggressive. He chases pitches off the plate a lot. So could lend itself to being a pretty streaky player for fantasy purposes. Pete Crow Armstrong. Byron Buxton, man, look, the Twins and him, they came up with a plan last offseason to keep him on the field more, and it mostly worked. He played 126 games, his most since 2017, the second most of his career. And when he played, he was outstanding. He hit 264, 35 home runs, 97 runs, 24 steals, and 878 OPS. He still hits the crap out of the ball. The athleticism is still firmly intact. He was 100th percentile in sprint speed. Chris, I feel like this is kind of another toughie here for ranking for next season. Still incredibly talented and makes a huge impact, but we just don't really know how many games to project for Buxton next season.
I mean, there is going to be a big change in how Byron Buxton is valued this offseason, and I don't really think there should be. Like, as a hitter, he stole a bunch more. That was the biggest change for Byron Buxton, the 24 steals. Maybe that's a sign that he was just feeling much better and that whatever the plan was that kept him healthy worked in a way that will prove sustainable. I would love it if that was the case. I think the baseline should be deep skepticism that there is something the Twins have finally figured out that they can keep Byron Buxton healthy. I'm not writing it off. I just don't think it's something you should bet on. And he's probably going to go, 80 picks higher than he was.
Oh, he went
a year ago.
Late last year.
His preseason,
he was like 210,
225.
Yeah,
and That
I
first
didn't
mock
see you
draft
going
did-
as aggressively after him this past year.
I
It
know.
was
I would have had a
with
much
his
better
cost
season.
with the cost at the lowest.
That first mock
And-
draft we did, he was a top 60 pick. So.
Yeah, I
that's-
just like
that's understandable. I mean,
just
the guy
don't
had a
thi-
combined 60, 59 technically home runs and steals. Like
I just don't think we learned anything new about Byron Buxton this season.
there are,
Like
I don't
maybe
know. I'm looking.
the steal, like you can find, but like he's 31.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's really unlikely that Byron Buxton both unlocked a new level of performance, which frankly, it's not that different than what he'd been doing for the past half decade. He just stayed healthy. His per 162 averages from 2021 through 2024. 251 batting average. Okay, he was a little better than that this year, but 13 points, that's basically nothing. 39 homers, 106 runs, 86 RBI, 15 stolen bases. Again, the steals were better,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I think he mostly just stayed healthy.
He also had those 2 years, 2022 and 2023, when he hit 224 and 207 respectively. So there, at least for me, when I'm assessing Buxton year by year, it hasn't purely been just, oh, well, what if he stays healthy? There have been performance questions in the past. I'll admit the OPS looks more consistent than
And you're also
that
talking about
memory
really
would tell
small
me.
sample sizes.
True, but the fact he also stole bases this year, which we've seen him do in the past, but pretty distant past. So he went from being just a fringe contributor in stolen bases to a plus contributor in stolen bases, and that does make a difference. If we can count on him to have a respectable batting average and to be a plus contributor on stolen bases, then I have an easier time gambling on Buxton, kind of for the same logic where, by the same logic, I'm gambling on George Springer, where it's like, okay, would I rather take would I rather gamble more on a much higher end outcome, or would I rather take Randy Arozarena? And I think I would rather gamble more on the much higher end outcome that we saw from Buxton and Springer this past season. I mean, saying that, I know, well, why, if I really believed they were capable of this, why wouldn't have I invested more in them last year when they were cheap? And I don't have a good answer for that. But as I'm making out my outfield rankings now, it's like, oh, that's too high for Randy Arozarena or whoever you want to put in that range. Brent Rooker, who didn't have as good of a season this year as he did in 2024. Or I don't know. Like I feel like they're good. They're good, solid starting outfielders, but for how high they would have to rank if I ranked them ahead of Byron Buxton and George Springer, I don't think they're good enough for that range of the outfield rankings.
So do you basically have Buxton right behind Springer in your rankings?
I have Buxton 11th and Springer 13th with
right.
Wyatt Langford in between them.
All right, let's take our final break. When we return back into the outfield position from this past season, right after this.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric.
Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today we're recapping the outfield position from this past season and moving outside of the top 9. We've only gone through 9 names. 10, 11, and 12, we have Christian Yelich, who again no longer has outfield eligibility. Cody Bellinger, who is outfield only, no longer has first base. And number 12 was Riley Greene. So 3 interesting names here. Yelich had the back surgery last year, came in and played 150 games, his most since 2022, and performed really well when he was on the field. Cody Bellinger, strong season with the Yankees, 29 homers, 13 steals, 813 OPS, opted out of his deal. Where will he wind up in free agency? And Riley Greene had his best season yet, 36 homers, 111 RBI. I didn't think he had the power to get to this level while playing his home games in Comerica Park, but he proved me very wrong with a nice little breakout season here. I'll kind of open it up to you guys because I think three pretty interesting names and at three different points of their careers as well. So wherever you want to go with this, Scott, you're up. Yelich, Bellinger, Riley Greene.
I mean, I start with Bellinger, whose free agency is going to be one of the most interesting to watch for fantasy purposes. We talked about that with Alex Bregman at third base, but I think Bellinger even more so because Yankee Stadium, not surprisingly, did him a lot of favors this past year. He hit 18 of his 29 home runs at home. He hit 302 with a 909 OPS at home versus 241 with a 715 OPS on the road. And he is the sort of power hitter who relies more on optimizing the angle off the bat than just hitting the ball really hard. And that profile is more dependent on having the right venue. Yankee Stadium was a perfect fit for Cody Bellinger. It played out the way we hoped. I hope he comes back. If he doesn't, I hope he goes somewhere else with a right field fence that isn't so daunting. And it's definitely going to affect my ranking for Bellinger, whether he resigns with the Yankees or goes someplace else that's favorable for a swing.
Mm-hmm. Chris, how much are you buying in on this big power breakout that we saw from Riley Greene?
All right. So the problem is when we're talking about the top 12 at any position, and especially a position like outfield where so many of the top 12 guys were not who we expected them to be, I think my default is going to be I don't really buy it. And in Riley Greene's case, it feels worse than I expect to buy into it because he was so bad in the second half. The batting average just completely collapsed in a way that makes a lot of sense. He's a really, really bad plate discipline guy. He's got great power. He hits the ball really hard. I think he's a legit 30-plus homer guy, but this is one where I could see it being a 215 batting average pretty easily. I'm not saying that's the expectation, but he hit 218 in the second half. The power was still there, which was nice to see, and I feel like that provides a decent backstop for him, but I do think there is some real bottom-out potential with Riley Greene in the batting average. I've made the comp to Nicholas Castellanos in the past, and the nice thing is Castellanos kind of fell off hard really quickly. It's because his breakout came so late. So Riley Greene's breakout coming at 24, 25 should give him a little more runway, but it's a profile that I think is pretty strong, but with some huge red flags that I just kind of depends on what the price is going to be. If he's a top 12 outfielder, I'm out. But, the lower he goes, the easier it is to buy into it.
I mean, he's in that second tier I keep referring to where it's like, do I really want to take this guy over Springer and Buxton? Because Greene is such a one-note player, which wasn't the read on him coming out of the minors at all. He's been much more power focused as a hitter, but he strikes out more than 30% of the time. And the average exit velocity this year actually wasn't that good. It was in the lower half of the league. Still hit the ball very hard at the high end. So I think the power is legit, but there are definitely some flaws here as a hitter that really makes it dependent on him having a high home run total. He had a pretty good year in 2024, but that was just 24 home runs versus the 36 he hit in 2025. What if he regresses just back to 24 home runs? Suddenly, with that very high strikeout rate and the impact that losing those 12 home runs would have on batting average, I don't know. It does make me a little queasy.
Again, that was Riley Greene. 13, 14, and 15 in the outfield. We had James Wood, Jazz Chisholm, who again no longer has outfield, and Kyle Tucker. So James Wood's season went similarly to Pete Crow Armstrong. He looked like a breakout, then stumbled in the second half where he hit 223, 690 OPS, a 39% strikeout rate for James Wood in that second half. And then Kyle Tucker, I mean, he was cruising. And then his season kind of got thrown off by injury. He suffered a fracture in his right ring finger in June, and then a strained calf in September. He's kind of been derailed by injury 2 years in a row here. But before the injury, he looked like he could have been in the mix for, the top player in fantasy, Kyle Tucker. But James Wood, I think, is the one that kind of stands out more just based on, his prospect pedigree, how he started the year, but then also, unfortunately, how he ended it.
Yeah, I think Kyle Tucker's just a superstar. And any discount you want to give me on Kyle Tucker, anything past like the 7th pick, I think he's a great pick. I just think his 5 category potential is just almost unmatched. I think he's a phenomenal player. I don't care where he signs. I don't really care about the injuries. It's been, I don't know, man. Like, maybe he's just a really compelling liar. And that's how he was able to get to stay on the field with a fractured shin that was misdiagnosed in 2024, and then a fractured hand that was also misdiagnosed in 2025 that he played through. Maybe that's just, I don't know. Maybe there's something about him that maybe he moves too much in the X-ray machine, and they just can't get I don't know what the possible explanation for why I should be especially concerned about Kyle Tucker. I'm not. I will draft Kyle Tucker in the first round. If he makes it to the second round in any drafts, consider yourself super lucky. James Wood.
If I could interject with a quick note on Kyle Tucker, since we were talking about him, I think getting out of Wrigley will help a lot too. Mm-hmm. I remember I saw somebody on Twitter or X had put together a video showing all the fly balls he hit that would have been home runs in Yankee Stadium, which isn't necessarily where Kyle Tucker's going, but the flip side of that,
he should.
We've talked about how bad Wrigley Field can be for pull side power, and he only hit 7 of his 22 home runs there this past year, Kyle Tucker. So another one whose free agency you'll want to watch closely. I think he'll be fine if he does go to a bad hitter's park, but I think the ceiling could be even higher than we're giving him credit for if he does go to a good hitter's park.
San Francisco would not be good.
That would be bad. If he goes to Yankee Stadium, we might get 40 homer Kyle Tucker. So that would be very, very fun. As far as James Wood, he is so young still and so physically gifted, and everything that has always been true about him remains true. I have to wonder, and I haven't seen anything, but I have to assume he was not healthy in the second half. That's the only thing that would make sense for how badly he fell off, because it wasn't just 39% strikeout rate in the second half, much less productive. He also only attempted 6 steals in the second half after attempting 16 in the first half. His sprint speed was down. I know he dealt with the quad tendonitis in the spring, and I wonder if that was just a nagging issue all season, because if not, that's a really, really scary second half regression from James Wood, who, still hasn't really shown the ability to lift the ball consistently. Was better than I thought against lefties, actually, this season, so that's less of a concern. But, yeah, just very much an incomplete player right now.
I lean towards James Wood just maybe having a hole in his swing that opposing teams exploited, right? I mean, that was a kind of a big concern for him as a prospect, is just being as big as he is, that there is going to be some swing and miss in his game. And, the zone contact went way down. The swinging strike rate went way down. And I noticed they started throwing him more breaking and off-speed pitches in the second half of the season as well. He crushed fastballs. He really struggled with anything that was not a fastball. So that has to be a point of emphasis and focus for James Wood here in the offseason. 16, 17, and 18, we have Randy Arozarena, Jackson Chourio, and Brent Rooker. Randy Arozarena bounced back from his down 2024, hit 27 homers, 31 steals, 95 runs scored. He also plummeted over the final 2 months of the season with a .216 batting average and a .641 OPS. Jackson Chourio, eerily similar rookie and sophomore seasons. He was limited to just 131 games due to a strained right hamstring, which caused him to miss about a month of the season. But he's a very aggressive hitter at the plate. He's got power. He's got speed. He reminds me of a slightly lesser version of Julio Rodriguez, I think, for Jackson Chourio. And then Brent Rooker, he also took a step back, but he proved the bat is legit. Hit 30 homers, counting stats were good, 814 OPS. Has dropped his strikeout rate 2 seasons in a row. He got it all the way down to a 22% strikeout rate. So pretty impressive stuff there for Rooker, who will continue to play in Sacramento next year. It's a great hitter's park, an improving lineup as well. So these three, obviously Chourio has much higher end upside, and he's going to be drafted in likely the 2nd or 3rd round. These other two kind of feel more like, I guess, outfield 2s that you would draft in the middle rounds, Randy Arozarena and Brent Rooker.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they're decidedly 2nd tier. I mean, Arozarena, we could harp on the rough last couple months there, but we've had similar concerns from him in the past, thinking, oh, he's falling off, Randy Arozarena.
He's so streaky too, just throughout his career.
Right.
Just who he is.
Yeah, so he always bounces back with another 20 to 30 homers, 20 to 30 steals. The batting average probably isn't going to be great, but overall, I don't have worries about Arozarena. Chourio, I think we're guilty of doing with Chourio the same sort of thing we were doing with Julio Rodriguez early in his career, where it's like, oh, look at how strong he finished. If you could just apply that to the next season. So it feels like Chourio's sophomore season was a disappointment. The stat line was virtually identical to his rookie season, the final stat line. He's only 21, so I'm not saying he won't get better. For being as high end of a prospect as he was, and for as productive as he's been his first 2 years, it is surprising how low his contact quality is. And I could see that improving as he gets older and stronger, presumably. And then he could make a leap. But I don't know about you guys. I'm not going to draft Jackson Chourio with as much just unbridled optimism this year. I'm going to expect basically who he's been the past 2 years. That's more like a late 2nd rounder than an early 2nd rounder. And if he takes a step forward, great. But that's not going to be my expectation.
I mean, I think the thing we have to keep in mind, one, he'll be 22 on opening day next year. I think he turns 22 in like November or something. If all you do is draft him as if he'll hit 275 with 25 homers, 25 steals, 100 runs, and 90 RBI, which is basically what he was on pace for if he didn't miss that month, that's a 2nd round player. The thing is, you don't have to bet on him taking a huge step forward, but it also feels like a pretty good bet to make, because even if you miss, Jackson Chourio should still be awesome.
Yeah.
And if you hit, you're hitting on a 22-year-old who has been awesome already.
Yeah.
Which is generally
good.
a very good bet to make.
He was getting pushed into round 1.
Yeah, no, it's just a question of,
yeah,
is that going to happen in 2026 or 2027 or 2028? I don't know.
The breakout you're talking about.
Yeah, the breakout.
I said no. I meant, is he going to be pushed into round 1? That's what I was saying.
The thing is, I just mentioned 2028, and that's a long time from now. I can't even think about that. I will be 40 that year.
It's not so bad.
That will be Jackson Chourio's age 24 season.
That's crazy.
That is like, he might not become a world-conquering superstar until he's 25. And that would be 4 years from now.
Yeah.
That's the thing we have to keep in mind here.
I'm totally fine with him being a kind of mid to late 2nd rounder for next season. I keep referencing this first mock draft that we did, but I had the 5th overall pick. I started Bobby Witt Jr. I took Jackson Chourio in the 2nd round, and then Yordan Alvarez in the 3rd round.
That's an awesome start.
Yeah, and I wasn't really trying to avoid high-end pitchers. I just, if I'm not going to get one of the top 3, they're not going to make it back to me in round 2. I'm not going to be the first one to take the SP4 in round 3. So then I just took whoever was left in round 4, and I think it was Brian Wu. And I went, Wu, Reagans, and, the pitching turned out okay. But, I
there's
a lot of drafts kind of working out that way.
In my mind, there's no starting pitcher worth taking in round 3. Yeah. I'm more open to taking the very high-end Skubal, Crochet, and Skeens in late round 1 or early round 2.
That's what we did.
But Yeah, we did do that in that mock. You're right.
Yeah.
But in round 3, there's nobody worth taking there.
19, 20, and 21 in the outfield. Andy Pages, Brandon Nimmo, and Tyler Soderstrom. We spoke about Soderstrom in our first base recap. Andy Pages and Brandon Nimmo, eerily similar stat lines for these two. Pages, 272, 27 homers, 14 steals. For Nimmo, it was 262, 25 homers, 13 steals. So very similar players. Look, Pages is still young enough where he can, I guess, improve. We don't know exactly what he is yet, but if they are these players again next year, that's kind of like a, borderline outfield 2, outfield 3. I don't think that there's crazy upside with either one of these guys, Pages or Nimmo.
No, but I think we're beyond the point where there is that crazy upside in the outfield. So I look at, if we're comparing these two, who's more likely to repeat the stat line? Nimmo. Pages was so bad he got benched in the World Series, so bad during the playoffs, which I don't think that's his future, coming off the Dodgers bench. I think it was just a bad streak for a player whose his profile makes him streaky. But, there are reasons to doubt whether his breakout was totally what it appeared to be at face value, given that the exit velocity readings are pretty suspect. Nimmo, though, he's the one I really want to focus on here, because I ran, as I was putting together my outfield rankings and this very jumbled stretch in the second tier at the position, I ran a few polls on Twitter to help me sort it out. Which of these 4 guys would you take first, kind of things. I had a series of 5 polls with some of the names crossing over between the polls. My biggest takeaway from that process was that Brandon Nimmo is severely underrated, because he was 2 years in a row. He's proven his power production now 2 years in a row. He's proven that he's of some help in stolen bases. I think you can basically pencil in Brandon Nimmo for a 260, 24, 85, 85, 12 line.
Yeah.
Which isn't a stud, but again, we're beyond the point where we're drafting studs in the outfield. That is, I have him 27th at the position. He finished 20th. I have him 27th. The way those polls were running, people weren't even going to take him in the top 36. Yeah. And that's insane, because Nimmo's very valuable.
And that's a great outfielder to have in a 5 outfielder league, where you just kind of want to continue banking stats. Yeah. Brandon Nimmo is one of those guys that's pretty much just going to bank stats.
I do want to just bump on Pages for just a second, because I want to be careful not to overstate the certainty with which I am saying this, because he is young and the Dodgers tend to wring every bit of value they can out of everyone they have, and all that's true. I feel like he is someone I have just zero interest in drafting in 2026, unless the price is, I don't know, close to 200. I really, really don't think this guy is
close to 200 overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no way he's going that late.
I think the best things he has going for him, one, he's pretty good. I think he's okay. 2, the Dodgers just have nobody in center field. And that is
he's an amazing defender.
Yeah, he's a very good defensive player. And they even the Dodgers have 4 outfielders who might be top 50 prospects this year. I don't really think any of them are center fielders, and most of them aren't going to be up in 2026 anyway. So I think there's some semblance of safety when it comes to playing time for Andy Pages, but he was pretty bad in the second half. The underlying numbers do not back up what he did overall. And then
they're not that far off, though.
The
unplayable.
Aren't terrible.
They're not that far.
They got better as the season went on.
Expected batting average 266, so 6 points off there. Mm-hmm. He slugged 461.
He pulls the ball in the air a pretty good amount, too.
You know what I think Andy Pages is?
What?
You can take this as a criticism or an insult if you want. I think he's Lourdes Gurriel. And Lourdes Gurriel has been a useful player for fantasy for a while.
I think he's a little bit better.
He's never been much more than you.
He was a 4-win player, Andy Paez. I mean,
that's defense.
Sure,
I think he's talking for fantasy.
Yeah, I think for fantasy.
He was a positive contributing player. You know?
So I want to go back and check Gurriel's steals because I think that might be where you're selling Paez short.
He had 10 this year. Yeah,
but that was the first time Gurriel had ever had double digits. Paez got 14. He's fast enough to get more than that. So if Gurriel was a 15 steal guy and batted in the Dodgers lineup,
that's fair.
I think we'd feel a lot better about Lourdes Gurriel than we do.
Yeah,
15 to 20 steal guy, let's say.
Yeah. I think Paez has a very slim margin for error as a hitter.
I mean, look, he got benched. He got benched in the World Series, so that kind of shows the margin for error right there. But at the same time, I think the cost is going to be reasonable. I don't think he's going to last to 200. I rank him 118, just behind Brandon Nimmo. My outfield ranking's 28th for a guy who had a 27 homer, 14 steal season, plays for the Dodgers.
And I'm not going to rank him 200th, to be clear.
Yeah,
that's more like in my first round of rankings, he was my outfielder 40. You said he was around 30?
Round 30s? In my around 30 in my 28th. Yep.
Okay, so that mostly just comes down to I'm going to rank him probably 150th or whatever it comes out to. I'm just not going to be very excited to draft him there.
And that's fair. Like I wish I could look at Andy Paez and say, yes, this is totally on the up and up. Average exit velocity was only 28th percentile. Doesn't walk very much. Was benched in the postseason. Like there are reasons for concern here. Yeah. But there comes a point where it's like, do I just take Andy Paez with those concerns, or do I take Jacob Marcy? Who wasn't as high end of a prospect, much worse lineup. Had a pretty awful September. The final numbers still ended up great because the August was so good. But like, we're getting to a range of the outfielders where there's a lot of room for doubt with all of them.
Yeah. Again, I keep referencing this first mock draft we did. It's on the website if you want to check it out, cbssports.com/fantasy/baseball. A couple outfielders that went right after Andy Paez in round 13, by the way. That's pick 146 that he went. So, closer to that 150 range, but right after him, Noelvi Marte, Lawrence Butler, Luis Robert, Jacob Marcy. All those names, yes, they have some more. They all have some upside too, I think. So,
I mean, you could see but Paez included. You could see a even more favorable outcome. You could see the bottom falling out for all of them.
Yeah. That's fair. All right, we're going to leave off there. The next three names are Jarren Duran, Seiya Suzuki, and Taylor Ward. So I want to give those a little bit more time. I don't want to rush through those, so we'll save that for tomorrow's podcast. Yes, we're going to be live again on Tuesday night because Chris and I are gone later in the week. So, we're going to be podcasting 2 days in a row here, and we will be talking about outfield rankings in particular on the Express episode. So make sure to check those out as well. We're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.